40 of the Dorton and Doetkott Debate podcast. I am Lucas Dorton on episode 40 with Nick Doetkott here. It has been a little bit since we have put out a podcast, but Mr. Doetkott, how are we feeling?
Pretty good, we're rested up. We pretty much took that, Christmas break, but had to come back for one episode, talk some NBA.
Yeah.
Feeling pretty good.
Yeah. Obviously, we would have liked to have gotten out a show recently between, the month time that we got out the last one. But your boy, Lucas here, we had some COVID issues, and I had no energy or health to do anything. So we didn't put out a podcast for a couple weeks, and then we had some stuff going on the weeks before that. So nothing really worked out, but we're able to do it now. Everyone's healthy. We're feeling good. So I guess we'll just have to go into it here. I mean, maybe it's the hair, Nick, that has prevented you from getting COVID. I don't know.
Force shield, baby. Or force field.
Force shield, that's right.
Whatever you want to call it.
Nice. Alrighty, but yeah, as you guys saw from the title name, episode 40 here, this is going to be an NBA season preview episode. So we're going to be making predictions as far as standings go, 1 to 15 in each conference, and then award predictions, and then some playoff predictions as well, too, before we get into that. So, without further ado, we will just get right into things. We'll start off with the Eastern Conference goes. And we're just going to go 1 to 15 here. Probably felt would be a little bit easier than doing the divisions because the divisions are difficult, and I don't think many people know who's are in what division anyways. It doesn't really even matter. So
essentially, they're relevant. They play practically everybody the same amount of times. I think you play everybody in your conference 4 times. That would be 56 games, which would leave 26, and you play. I think you play everybody in the East twice, and then you play everybody in the. If you're in the West, you play everybody in the East twice, and then you play everybody in the West 4 times, except 4 different teams. I think you play everybody in your division 4 times, so it's really only a difference of 4 games, anyways. Sure. Divisions are practically meaningless in basketball, so.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens this year. This is an exciting season. A lot of players moving around. But we're going to get right into it here. Starting with the Eastern Conference, Nick, who did you have as your top 8 seeds?
I had Milwaukee at 1. I have the Nets at 2. Okay. The Raptors at 3. The Heat at 4. Celtics 5. 76ers 6. My surprise team, probably the most, is the Hawks at 7. And the Pacers at 8. And then I have the Wizards at 9, just barely missing out at 41 and 41.
Okay. So we'll just go through the seedings here, and then we'll do the discussion as far as why we picked it that way. So for me, for my top 8, I had also Milwaukee at 1. I had the 76ers 2, the Celtics 3, the Nets 4, the Heat 5, the Raptors 6, the Pacers 7th, and then I had the Wizards at 8. And I actually had the Hawks at 9, just missing out on the playoffs.
I'm kind of surprised you have 76ers at 2, being you're not a big Joel Embiid guy.
I'm not. I mean, I do think the guy is extremely talented. As much of a Jokic fan as I am, with him and Ben Simmons, obviously they always find a way to get a top seed. Now, do they do anything within the playoffs? Typically, no, but they'll probably up there towards the top 3 seed. I think.
They did add some shooting this year with Seth Curry, who I actually think is a very good player, and then I can't remember the other one. Danny Green, although he didn't really do much last year. But, they lost Horford, and do they still have Tobias Harris or no?
I believe so.
Okay, I guess they do still Harris. So, I mean, they still got a good squad, but we'll see.
So, where did you have Toronto at? Where'd you have them again?
I had Toronto at 3.
At 3. I think for me, the only reason why I had them at 6 and not as high is because they lost Serge Ibaka and they lost Marc Gasol, who are two really extremely solid defensive pieces there. Both can have their moments on offensive too. So I think they'll drop a little bit down.
I just feel like every year Toronto does way better than what everybody expects because
That's
on
true.
paper they don't look that good, but then they just go out and ball. And they did lose Gasol and Ibaka, which is concerning, but their guard play is really good. They still have Siakam. And center, I mean, you want a center, but the big men are less important than any other position in the NBA the way it's constructed now. I mean, I think they'll still manage to get a 3, but I could definitely see them getting a 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they always outplay expectations, it seems like, so I didn't want to drop them too much.
And then you had the Nets at 2.
And by the way, I had the Celtics at 5. Granted, I don't think they would be higher than the Raptors, even if it weren't for Kemba's injury. But the fact that Kemba's going to miss a little bit of time, that affected that as well.
For me, I do think I maybe should have put the Celtics a little bit lower, but the reason I had them at 3 was because although Kemba probably is not going to be at 100% for a little bit, I was so pleased with the progression that Jason Tatum made from I guess 2 seasons ago to last season, pretty much being the guy in the playoffs for them, making it really competitive. I feel he is a guy that can make the Celtics go make a deep run in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel although Kemba being there would help out more, I do think Jason Tatum is at that point where he can put a lot more on his shoulders and be asked to do more.
And they still do have Marcus Smart, who can fill in and with point guard duties for the time being. I mean, they are a solid squad. They're very deep. They have a very good coach. I personally don't know if I'd put them at 3 even with the healthy Kemba. I just think the Raptors and Nets are gonna be pretty good, and obviously the Bucks. But the Celtics are that team in the East that, even though they're probably not going to have like the 1 seed or maybe even the 2 seed, they're like the last team you want to play. They always seem to win when it matters.
Right.
Up until the conference finals.
Now, let me ask you this. The Nets, we both had them top 5. Do you think, I don't know about you, I will say for me personally, I was kind of putting them higher with the intention of maybe they trade for a James Harden at some point. Now, I will say, if they don't, with as much of a cancer as Kyrie is, he's a good player, and as Kevin Durant's a phenomenal player too. They have an outstanding bench and a support system around them, to where if they aren't playing well, they can still rely on those guys to do something. Mm-hmm. Now, if they trade for James Harden, Dinwiddie's probably gone. LeVert probably is gone. I mean, you're not going to keep both of those. One of them for sure will be gone. Maybe a Joe Harris. I don't know. You're going to have to give up a lot for James Harden. Do you think the Nets pull the trigger for at some point during the season they try and get a James Harden?
I think they'll try, but I personally think James Harden's going to be rocky the whole year. There's a decent chance he gets traded, but I'm not going to predict it because it's just too hard. You'd have to predict who he's leaving, and the Rockets' record would be changed. So I just pretended James Harden isn't going to get traded. I don't think he will, but it definitely could happen. I think the Nets are probably the favorite to get him if he is traded.
Yeah.
But just the Nets, so I have him at 2. Now, personally, I wanted to be the guy who put him at 5, 6, 7, 8 because there's so many people who are high on him just because they got Durant and Kyrie and whatnot, and I'm like, I don't care. I don't think Durant and Kyrie are going to make him that good. Like, I shouldn't personally just bash some dude, especially not a guy I don't know. But, like, I don't think much of Kyrie Irving. I think he's just bad for locker rooms. I honestly he was a great number 2 in Cleveland. In the last 2 years, he's just got such an ego. I honestly think he's almost more of a detriment to a team than he is a positive. He was playing like an MVP through the first 10 games last year, and then he wasn't that good. The record without him, I'm pretty sure, is better than with him. So I'm not a big Kyrie guy. But despite that, I think even without Kyrie, they could have a chance at a 2 seed. I like I said, I wanted to be the one who goes against the grain and against everybody saying they're going to be good. But you look at the roster, and it's like no, this team's pretty good. Like they were a 7 seed essentially without Kyrie last year, and then you're adding Durant to that. Which does that jump you 5 spots? Most people probably say no, but Durant is really good, and
Yeah.
this team's also going to get better because most of the guys are young. So like I said, I was planning on putting him at like 5, 6, but look at the roster. I'm like, no, this is a deep team. I mean, Kyrie's still a heck of a ball player, and you got Durant. Well, then you got Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, who's one of the best shooters in the league. I think he won the 3-point contest. You got Jared Allen,
Jordan.
DeAndre Jordan. I mean, they got a deep team. So I put them at 2. I think there's a very good chance they don't get a 2 and they get a 3 or 4, but with injuries and just drama and whatnot. But this team's real. Typically, if you're deep, I'm going to put you higher because you can overcome injuries and all that stuff. And I just think, even in a star-studded league, you want a deep team. So I don't know. They can. I think they can definitely get the 2.
I think for me, the Brooklyn Nets are the biggest storyline for a team that I am really intrigued to see how it plays out, because I think they have a number of different possibilities of how the Brooklyn Nets could finish. I think with their team, I don't know if they win it all, but if on paper, they have a team that could compete. But
I mean,
how will Kyrie Irving hold up?
A healthy Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Probably like the second best player in basketball.
And with no injuries and no drama, Brooklyn could, I'm not saying they win, but I think they could compete for a championship. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, there's a boatload of things that could go wrong.
Nash is their coach, correct?
Yep.
First-year coach. Now, the first-year coach, it's tough to stay there. Now, I don't think coaching is that important in NBA. I think you have one of like the exceptions, like Popovich and Hayward, or Stevens, I mean. It's really important, but I believe in Nash. I think he could do a good job. So we'll see. But yeah, Brooklyn is definitely going to be like the most intriguing team coming to the season, probably, I'd say, yeah.
And then what about for the bottom few teams? I had the Pacers at 7. I had the Wizards at 8. You had the Hawks at 8. Do you think this is the year of the Hawks? Obviously, they kind of push it in.
A little doubtful because I do think Trae Young's really good. It's funny. Luka Doncic and Trae Young were traded for each other. Yeah. And they're clearly the best 2 players in that draft, and it's not even close. But see, Trae Young, I don't like to put wins and losses on one guy, especially when you're talking awards. But like you're talking who's better, like Trae Young balled out last year, but they still just always lost. And they had Collins and Herter and some decent players, but they always lost. And like, well, is Trae Young just kind of a stat stuffer or what? But it's like, no, they just weren't that good, and they didn't find a way to win. So I don't think it's like, I mean, Trae Young's still really good, I think. But you got Trae Young, and then you got John Collins, who's really good. You got Herter, you got DeAndre Hunter, and then they added some good players. Gallinari for one. They got another good draft pick again, and I just think Atlanta could really make some strides this year. So I have them going all the way from second to worst to 7. I'm not super confident about it, but I think they have the potential to do it. So I have them at 7, and then the Pacers seem like too good of a team to have at 8. I almost put them at 9, but I just think the Hawks are good for elite this year. I think the Wizards I do have a 9 below them, but the Wizards with Beal and Westbrook should be pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to count them out. And I just couldn't put the Pacers above the Celtics and the Sixers and the Heat. They're a very solid team, but they don't really have a superstar. They got swept in the playoffs by the Heat. To me, that's not a very good sign. And I put them at 8. I think they're too good against the playoffs, but I don't see them finishing much better than that.
That's kind of my thoughts on Indiana, too. I mean, obviously, Oladipo there, you hope that if he can stay healthy, and that's a big if, because he's had some moments in his career, which I don't like putting injury prone on a player because it's as a reason to not bring them in, because it's not like the player is trying to get hurt. But he has had some serious injuries that has taken him out for a little bit of time. So I'm hoping he can stay healthy this year. But like I said, I have them as a 7 seed. Make the playoffs. I don't see them getting past the first round. Prove me wrong, hopefully, but I agree. Last season, I believe I had them beating the Heat. I think in a 6 or 7 game
I did
series,
too.
because I think we both said that out of the first round matchups, that one is the most intriguing, just because who's gonna win? You didn't know, and then the Heat handled that business easily. So good for them. Did you have something else you wanted to say there?
Yeah, I was having a brain fart on who the Hawks all added. It was Gallinari for one, but they also added Bogdanovich. They got Rajon Rondo, and they got Capella towards the end of the year last year. I mean, I honestly think, like I said, I'm not super confident they can jump that far, but with that roster, I mean, they should be pretty decent. So I think the Hawks could be a somewhat of a surprise team in the
sleeper team this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have the Wizards at 8.
Because otherwise they have 7 of the 8 playoff teams from last year returning, which I don't like doing that, but I just don't see a lot of those teams that didn't make the playoffs in the East improving enough to make it.
Right. My thought process behind the Wizards, it's hard for me to put now. Am I a big Russell Westbrook fan? I'm not. I think he's kind of a stat stuffer, and but the guy plays with a level of intensity that not many other players in NBA history have played with, and the guy wants to win. He has dragged some not great OKC team to the playoffs after Kevin Durant left, and I think with Bradley Beal, who is one of the most slept-on players in basketball, along with a Rui Hachimura, who I think can make huge leaps this year, I'm excited.
The fact that Beal did not make the All-Star team is an utter disgrace.
Yeah.
Dude he was averaging like 29 and 8.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Dude's a stud. Like I said, I have them at 9. I find it hard to believe they're not going to make the playoffs. I'm high on the Hawks, and I couldn't put them above the Pacers and the 76ers, Celtics, Heat. I think they're a smidge above them, but I think we're pretty similar thought process on Westbrook. I don't think he's great. At one point I did. He averaged a triple-double, and then I realized, triple-doubles aren't even that rare anymore, and, I think he kind of stat stuffed. I'm with you on that. And he's not, he's no James Harden or Durant, the guys he used to play with, but he's good. He's not great, but he plays with such intensity, like you mentioned, and he's good enough to where him not making the playoffs just doesn't seem right, almost.
Right.
And then he's with Bradley Beal, but there's nothing else on that team, really. They got Hachimura, but there's not a lot of depth on that team, and I don't think they're going to find a way to make it in.
It'll be interesting. I think the Hawks have a really solid team, and they may sneak into the playoffs this year. But for me, I do think they're about another year out before they start to make interesting moves here. And then as far as the 10 to 15 teams, not that it matters too much, but I have in this order: Bulls, Magic, Hornets, Knicks, Pistons, and Cavs. I don't think any of those teams are going to make a serious threat for the playoffs. I think the Hawks at 9, or who you had at 9 as well too. I think those teams are the serious contenders.
So last year there was the top 8, and then literally the 9 seed was like, I think the Wizards or Wizards or somebody else. I can't even remember. We're like literally like 6 games back. Well, this year I have the Wizards at 41-41, a game back at 8, and then I have the Magic all the way at 34 wins at 10. I think there's going to be a huge drop off again. There's 9 teams I could see making the playoffs, and then 10 through 15 is terrible. I have the Magic, Bulls, Cavs. I have the Cavs at 30-52 at the 12 seed, and then I have the Hornets the 13 dropping all the way down to 24 wins. And I have the Pistons and Knicks. I have the Knicks going 18-64. I think they're going to be just an utter embarrassment.
Yeah.
While the other New York team is raking in the wins.
Not too much there. Those teams will be certainly competing for a high lottery pick next year's draft.
I think the East is actually going to have I actually have 8 teams above 500 in the East, which is very rare. But their 10 through 15 are just garbage. Garbage.
now we can move on to the Western Conference. I guess I will start off for this one. I have the Lakers at 1, Clippers at 2, Nuggets at 3, Mavs at 4, Jazz at 5. I have the Suns at 6, Portland at 7, and the Pelicans at 8. Now, I did not have the Rockets in there. I had them at 9, and my thought process behind that is this is assuming that James Harden is not on the Rockets at some point during the season. I would like to see if James Harden plays there the whole season, how they do. I don't know.
If he does, let's just say James Harden plays the whole year and he gives it his all. What seed would you expect?
That's tough because James Harden is a superstar player, one of the best players in the league. But having said that, I don't think he's a player that can like a LeBron type that can put a team on his back and say, let's go.
I don't necessarily disagree. There was the one year where they were I think they were the 1 seed. That 1 year where they won like 62 games or whatever the heck they won. That year it seemed like he was that guy. And he kind of was that year. But besides that, yeah, I don't disagree with you.
Wasn't that the season Chris Paul was there too?
It could have been. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Chris Paul always seems to elevate teams.
So that's kind of my.
Yeah, you're right, because that's the year Chris Paul.
He hurt his hamstring, and
they might have made the finals, but Chris Paul missed Game 6 and 7, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So honestly, even
I'll get to Chris Paul later.
Yeah.
But, I'm not a huge Chris Paul guy. I personally feel he's kind of a dirty player, but that guy goes somewhere and they win ball games, man. He is.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody in the NBA better at making their team better than LeBron. Like Chris Paul, honestly, I think increases teams' win totals by more than most. I mean, most players in the NBA. I couldn't give you many.
I don't think I could. Besides LeBron, I'm not sure I can think of someone that does it better. But anyways, so to get back to your question, if Harden is on the Rockets the whole season, I think they might get into the playoffs as a bottom seed, 7, 8. I really truly
have him at 7. If Harden plays the whole year, he's too good not to make the playoffs, in my opinion. I mean, besides LeBron, a healthy Durant, and Kawhi, and then maybe Giannis, I think 5 or 6 is the worst you can put Harden at as far as NBA ranking. Sure. Maybe 7 at the very worst.
Sure.
I just can't see him missing it. But yeah, there's not a lot there. I mean, John Wall, I'm a huge John Wall guy, but he hasn't played a game in 2 years. I mean, healthy, I think he's one of the best point guards in all of basketball.
Yeah.
But even if he's healthy, I mean, yeah, they don't got much there. So I definitely see your thinking. I just don't see 82 games from James Harden not making the playoffs, though.
And then,
I guess it would be like 70 or whatever it is this year.
And obviously bringing up John Wall is a good point, too.
Come to think of it, I did all these predictions with 82 games, and then I am playing 82. Whoops.
Well, that's all right. But let's hear your seedings.
So I have Lakers at 1, and I'm uber confident about that. I mean, sometimes even like when LeBron was in the East, I want to say he got the 1 seed maybe twice. His team is always the best in the East. He showed it every year. He made the finals like 8 straight years, but I think he knew come playoff time it wouldn't be a problem, so he didn't necessarily get the 1. But with the Lakers last year, it clearly seemed like he wanted to, and that whole Lakers team wanted to, and I think it's going to be the same this year. I think, call me a homer, call me biased. Well, maybe not a homer, but I'm a LeBron fan. But honestly, I think the Lakers are far and away the best team in basketball. I really do. So I have them getting the 1. I still think the Clippers are definitely the 2. I'm a little worried, maybe they could win the West, being that I think they're just going to come back with a vengeance after blowing the 3-1 lead to the Nuggets. And, they're talked about as the second best team in the West. They're going to show it, but we'll see. I have them getting the 2, and I have a big gap between Lakers and Clippers and everybody else. I actually have the Trailblazers getting 3.
Really?
I'm not too confident because I'm a big Damian Lillard guy. I've always liked the Trailblazers when they had LaMarcus Aldridge and whatnot. And the fact that they got the 8 last year and barely made the playoffs just baffled me. I mean, they beat the Nuggets and made the Eastern Conference Finals the year before, or Western Conference Finals the year before that. How they barely made the playoffs is just incredible to me that they were that bad. And I think they're going to bounce back. All the way to the 3, not sure, but I have them there. They actually got some depth for once, which they normally don't have. I have the Mavericks at 4. Now, Porzingis is going to miss. He might only miss 5 or 6 games, but literally the first 5 or 6 games are Lakers, Clippers, I want to say Nets, Warriors. They got some tough games right away. So I don't know. That might drop him from all the way from 4 to 6. It's going to be tight, but I put him at 4 because I'm about the biggest Luka guy you're going to find. And I got Nuggets at 5, so that's my top 5.
Okay, and then who were your 6, 7, 8 again?
So I got Suns at 6. That's the team I got taking the biggest leap. I have them at 46 and 36. Again, I now realize they're not playing 82, but I think they're going to be really good. Devin Booker's a very solid player who finally has another guy with him. Devin Booker did a fine job of playing point guard. I mean, he essentially, I think, practically played point guard for them, but he's obviously a shooting guard with Chris Paul there, taking the attention from the defenses. I think Devin Booker can I wouldn't be surprised if Devin Booker averages 29, 30 points this year, honestly. And then you got DeAndre Ayton, who's maybe the best big man in the league, who has 3 years of experience or less. You got I'm blanking on them, but I mean, they got some quality players over there, all really young guys. And like I said, Chris Paul went to Houston. They were best record in the West. He went to OKC, and they were a 6 seed when nobody thought they'd even make the playoff, or 5 seed maybe even. I think he's going to ball out. I think the Suns are going to be really good. I have the Rockets at 7. Like I said, I just can't see James Harden not making the playoffs. And I don't feel right having the Jazz 8. The Jazz are like the Western Conference Raptors. They don't look that good on paper, but they always outperform. Yeah. They always are there, right there. They're normally a 3, 4, or 5. So 8 just seems not even fair to them. But I look at the Mavericks, I look at the Nuggets, I look at Trailblazers and Rockets, and they all just seem better than Utah. So I put them at 8. And I got the Warriors at 9.
Okay. So for me, my kind of thought process behind the number 8, the Pelicans there, there's a lot of assuming going on with this, but you kind of have to. Assuming Zion can play more than half of the games this season, I think the Pelicans can be a team good enough to make the playoffs. Lonzo doesn't need to be scoring 20 a game as long as he's passing the ball and having smart plays like he seems to do. That's great. And then Brandon Ingram, who probably took one of the biggest steps last season from the Lakers going to the Pelicans, being one of their best players. I think this is a team that's young. Do I expect them to go against the Lakers and beat them? Absolutely not.
Probably wouldn't even win a game.
But I do think they have a chance to make the playoffs.
I have them at 10. I think they're very deep.
Yeah.
I don't know if they even have a top 50 NBA player. Zion healthy probably would be. Ingram's pretty good. But of all the teams in the West that I put 1 through 8, I don't know if the Pelicans have a player better than the best player on any of those teams. But they have real quality. They lost Holiday. But they got Bledsoe, who's a heck of a defender. He's a veteran guard. You got Zion. You got Ingram. You got Jackson Hayes is a good young guy. I mean, J.J. Redick, a very good veteran shooter. They got I love me some Lonzo Ball. They got some depth. They got a lot of potential, and I do think obviously Zion gets a lot of hype and a lot of credit that maybe shouldn't get right now, but he's good. He's good. So yeah, I still think they're maybe a year out, like you said with the Hawks, but I wouldn't be shocked if they make it in.
Now as far as the 10 to 15, who did you have for that?
So I had the Pelicans at 10.
Yep.
And I have them like 5 games worse than the Warriors, by the way. So I think there's both the East and the West. I think there's like 9. I think the 8 and the 9 will be a battle, and then I think there's a little bit of drop off. I have and I think the Pelicans are quite a bit better than 11 through 15. I have Timberwolves at 11. They got Towns and Russell. So for all those Timberwolves fans, I cheer for Minnesota and everything except the Wolves. Everybody knows me quite well. I'm a big old Wolves basher. That's what I am. The teams, they've done nothing at all to deserve any respect. They're a terrible run organization. Okay, it's just the facts. Face it. Well, they got 2 really good players. They got Russell and Towns. I really like Malik Beasley, how he fits with that team. I like me some Josh Okogie. But there's just no depth there at all. I mean, Jake Layman, I think right now is a starter on the depth chart.
Sure.
I mean, he's decent, but I mean, really, he's starting. Towns should not be your starting center. If they're really serious about winning, they would get a true center, a quality center. Let Towns play power forward. I don't care if that center averages 8 points. You need a big center that's going to clog the lane, play some defense, get some rebounds, and put Towns at the power forward.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to run an organization, so you're going to get stuck at the 11 seed. You got 2 quality players, but you have no depth. If any of those guys get injured, you're screwed. They do have a backup point guard that I really like. I like me some Ricky Rubio. I love me some Ricky Rubio.
You do.
But I can't see them doing anything better than 11 without. They might have the worst bench in basketball, besides like the Knicks. I got the Grizzlies at 12. They had a good year last year. I think they kind of outperformed it, though. Like, John Morant's good, but there's just not a lot there. So I have them at 12. And then the Kings, Spurs, and Thunder, I think, are going to be pretty bad. I have Kings 13. I have Spurs at 14. I know they still have DeRozan and Aldridge, but, I mean, Aldridge is declining. DeRozan's good, but even with Popovich, I don't see that Spurs team being any good. I have them at 14th, and I have the Thunder going all the way down to 15. I did not realize until I looked at it today that roster is awful. I mean, they lost Gallinari, they lost Adams, they lost Paul. They probably lost their best 3 or 4 players besides Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which means he's probably going to have a great fantasy season.
Oh, yeah.
But the Thunder I have as the 3rd worst team in basketball and the worst team in the West.
For me, I have the Warriors at 10. I think Clay being
Rockets
gone.
at 9, right?
Yep, Rockets at 9.
And 8 is what?
Pelicans.
Oh, okay.
So I have the Warriors at 10, Grizzlies 11, Spurs 12, T-Wolves 13, Thunder 14, Kings 15. For me, having the Warriors at 10, it's hard because I don't think Steph can win without Clay, nor do I think Clay could win without Steph. I don't think Wiseman is going to have as big of an impact to where he can pick up some of the slack that Klay Thompson not being there will be.
Yeah. Like, I think Wiseman's going to be really good, but I mean, he's a center in today's NBA. That's not going to elevate you to that great of heights.
So we'll have to see. It'll be interesting. Yeah, the T-Wolves at 13 for me. Again, pretty much everything that you said, I agree with 100%. They have no depth, a poorly run franchise, and I am getting close to putting them. Sorry, got something stuck in my throat. To putting them in Sacramento Kings territory, to where it does not matter who they draft or who they bring in, they cannot turn them into a good player. Karl Anthony Towns is a solid player, but don't get, like you said, get a center. Get a center.
I think this is time for my semi-annual Timberwolves suck rant.
Go ahead.
So the major 4 professional sports, the most embarrassing franchise of all of them. Well, football is definitely between the Lions and the Browns, but even the Browns are good now. Even the
Yeah.
Browns.
Yeah.
The Sabres are pretty awful in hockey. The Thrashers were, but now the Jets are fine. Um, Baseball, the Mariners have not made it in like 19 years. I think they actually have the longest playoff drought of the major four. But even they had the best regular season record of all time. They had Ichiro, they had Randy Johnson, they had Ken Griffey Jr. The Mariners are an embarrassment, but they're not the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves' only competition might be the fellow NBA team, the Sacramento Kings. At one point in time, they were the 1 and 2 seeds in the West with Peja and Chris Webber, Mike Bibby. I think it was like Cassell, Garnett, Sprewell. Timberwolves were good. I think they made the playoffs 3 times in their entire existence. I think. Don't quote me on that. I don't think that. I think they maybe made the Western Conference Finals against the Lakers. That was like 17 years ago. They made the playoffs in a league where literally over 50% of teams make the playoffs one time in the last, I believe, 17 years. I think they've been a top 10 seed one time, maybe twice. They have possibly the best young center in basketball. They can barely even win 30 games. They drafted Andrew Wiggins, who's a number 1 pick, and he was scared to even do anything but shoot a mid-range jumper. You have Jimmy Butler, who just brought a team to the finals, who
the team to the
he doesn't even want to play here because we're such an embarrassing franchise that doesn't even want to win games. To put it kindly, the Timberwolves are. This is the kindest way I can say it. They're an embarrassment to professional sports.
Now, what is the meanest way you could say it?
They do a poorer job at their job than any human being, any organization or company has ever done in the existence of God's world. Yes.
But there you have it, folks. If you're a T-Wolves fan, you're probably just unsubscribed.
They are an embarrassment to Minnesota and sports in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there we go. I'm done. I just have to. If I don't do that semi-annually, I won't feel right in the world. So there you go, T-Wolves fans.
Well, with that, I'll leave it up to you, Nick. Do you want to go through the playoff predictions first and then the award predictions, or award and then playoffs?
Playoffs, I think, first.
Okay. So we will just go through it here. I guess if you would like to start giving me your first round matchups.
So I have in the East, we have the Bucks and Pacers. I have Bucks in 5. I have Nets and Hawks. I think the Hawks can win 2. I have Nets in 6. Raptors and Sixers. I got Raptors in 6, and then the only upset I have would be the 5 Celtics over the 4 Heat in 7. So I have the Heat going from the finals to not winning a playoff series. The West, I have the Lakers and Jazz, which seems crazy for a first-round matchup, but I have Lakers-Jazz. I got Lakers in 5. I have Clippers over Rockets in 6, because I think James Harden's going to get you to at least 6. My one upset is the 6 Suns over, for some reason I wrote down 3 Clippers. That's wrong. The 3 Trailblazers in 7 games. And then I have the Mavs. I'm sorry. I have the Mavs over the Nuggets in 6 games.
Nick, did they not do enough for you in the playoffs?
I did my predictions. I had them at 5, and I'm not going to pick them over Luka because Luka's my boy.
Okay.
Jamal Murray, the way Jamal Murray played, it's hard to predict. I think I'd probably have Nuggets over Trailblazers, who I have at 3. I'd probably have Nuggets over Jazz, Rockets, and maybe the Suns, but
not Mavericks, over Luka.
Luka Doncic is gonna run the league in 3 years, 4 maybe.
Okay. So for me, and starting in the Eastern Conference, I had the Bucks and Wizards. Bucks winning that series, and then I have the number 4 Nets against the number 5 Heat. The Nets winning that. Celtics beating Toronto, and then the 76ers beating the Pacers. And then moving over to the Western Conference, I have the Lakers beating the Pelicans. I have the Mavericks beating the Jazz. I have the Nuggets beating the Suns and the Clippers beating Portland. Um, I
I
feel
think that would
pretty
be a good series.
I feel pretty confident about those. The Suns could give the Nuggets a little bit of issues, but I have a lot of trust in Jokic and Murray.
What seed do you have the
After
Nuggets at?
I have the Nuggets as a 3 seed.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that. I put them at 5. I The Trailblazers at 3 is probably not going to happen, but that's kind of
Your
my
bold
surprise
prediction?
team. Yeah, and then being especially Porzingis is injured and the Mavericks still don't have a lot of depth, I think the Nuggets could definitely finish above them. Regardless, I think the Mavericks come playoff time are going to be the better team. But yeah, I could see Nuggets at 3.
And then give me your second round matchups.
I have the Bucks over the Celtics in 6, and then I have the Nets over the Raptors in 7. I have Lakers over Mavs in 5, and then I have the Clippers over the Suns also in 5.
I have the Bucks over the Nets. I think that is where the Kyrie experiment implodes a little bit, and something will probably happen to where the Bucks will win the series. I'm kidding. And then I have the Celtics beating the 76ers. I don't think the 76ers are going to make a run in the playoffs.
They never do.
I do I do think at this point Kemba Walker is healthy enough to help the Celtics win, and with Jason Tatum playing well, we'll have to see what happens there. And then in the Western Conference, I also have the Lakers beating the Mavs, and then I have the Clippers beating the Nuggets. I do think that has potential to be a good series. Now, I'm not just saying that because we beat the Clippers in 7. I just think that the Nuggets have, as far as chemistry goes, some of the best chemistry in basketball, and a lot of times that can
Even if
help.
it was the reasoning, that wouldn't be bad reasoning. I mean, they literally just beat them last year, so.
Yeah. But I do think the Clippers are going to be playing pissed off this year,
Yeah.
and we'll have to see what happens with Ty Lue as their coach.
With that being said, and I totally agree, that's why I'm a little scared of the Clippers, but especially considering, the Lakers are definitely the Clippers' biggest threat. I mean, the Clippers lost Montrezl Harrell, who was second in the West who was second and sixth man of the year.
Yep.
And the Lakers got him. So I mean, that's really gonna hurt the Clippers. And I mean, they did gain Serge Ibaka. I will say that. But yeah, I think we're pretty much in agreement on them. They're gonna play pissed off, which is, honestly, you don't want to play a team pissed off like that. But I still think they're going to come a bit short, but we'll see. But yeah, we both have them in the conference finals, correct?
Yeah, Clippers and Lakers. Yep. Now, what were your conference finals?
So I have Bucks and Nets. I think that's going to be a very, very good series. I have it going 7, and it's hard to pick against Durant in 7. But I think the Bucks' depth, along with Giannis, is going to play through. I have the Bucks over the Nets in 7, and I have Lakers over Clippers, which we all thought it was going to happen last year, and honestly, even in the COVID season, it might have been the most anticipated. Would have been one of the most anticipated Western Conference Finals ever, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as much this year because the Lakers already won the finals last year. But I have Lakers and Clippers. I think that's going to be just, if it happens, just a highly, highly anticipated conference finals. But I don't have it going 7. I have Lakers in 6.
Yeah. So for me, I have in the Eastern Conference, obviously the Bucks going up against the Celtics. I could see this series going either way. I really could. I have said it a lot of years in the past where I
Celtics are
thought
not an easy team to beat.
they're not.
7
Brad
games.
Stevens is a phenomenal coach.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, I do think that this is finally the year that the Bucks and Giannis are able to get over the hump and are able to get into the finals. Now, I'm going to pick the Bucks. I could see the Celtics winning this series. So it's not a for sure Bucks can win. I'm picking them to win, but I would not be at all surprised if the Celtics assuming if they made it this far, to be able to win.
Yeah. Since we both have the Bucks in the finals, I'd like to touch on that too. Now,
Yep.
just like Durant being healthy means a lot of people think the Nets are just going to be really good. I didn't even necessarily think that's fine. I still put them at 2. Well, a lot of people now I love me some Drew Holiday, but they got Drew Holiday and now they act like the Bucks just won the lottery and there's no way they. Some people are acting like there's no way they don't win the East now. It's like, well, you lost Bledsoe. Like I honestly don't think they've improved that much from that. That's not even why I'm picking them in the finals. I just think they have the best roster in the East and they should make it. They just haven't yet, but they should, and that's why I finally have them making it. I don't have them making it very easy, but I'm putting it there. But even though he's a 2-time reigning MVP and might win a third this year, and he's probably the second or third best player in the NBA, if Giannis doesn't develop a quality jump shot, like a consistent, you should be scared and not give me 3 feet of breathing room, quality jump shot, I don't think he's going to be able to win the finals.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But I do have them making it there. I kind of just gave away my finals prediction, but
no, that is for me. This doesn't really have to do with predictions. But since we're talking about the Bucks, may as well just bring it up. Giannis obviously signing the 5-year the massive extension. For the reason that you just talked about Giannis, his struggles was the reason why not for a second did I think that Giannis was going to leave the Bucks. Giannis does a lot for this team with what he's done, winning MVPs, Defensive Players of the Year, but he has massive holes in his game that he cannot leave. If he were to leave it,
I'd say holes, but he has definitely a massive hole.
Right. Yeah. A massive hole. Right. Yeah. Not multiple, singular there. Singular hole.
How many holes does Giannis have?
Right. Right. But yeah.
Just don't think into that one.
Anyways. Sorry, folks, for that moment there. But Giannis, if he were to leave with a big hole in his game being the shooting, and that has pretty much been the reason why
Milwaukee... His free throw percentage is not very good either. I mean, he shot like 60% last year.
Which you could maybe toss that undershooting into some subsection.
Yeah.
But that pretty much being the reason, maybe not the reason, but a main reason as to why the Bucks cannot get past the hump is because if you take out the paint game for Giannis and force him to shoot the ball, he hasn't been able to do it. So I think for Giannis to leave when his massive hole has been a reason to why Milwaukee has not won the big games would be that would be awful to see. So that is why I did not even think for a second that Giannis was going to leave for that reason there, and he stayed.
Yeah.
And
But anyway. I mean, we're almost making it sound like none of us picked the Bucks to make the finals, but I think I think they're good enough roster-wise. They should make the finals, but I'm kind of jumping into my finals prediction now. I don't see them winning for the same reason as last year. Now, granted, the Lakers are a little bit different team this year. They lost McGee and Howard. But the Lakers were the biggest team in the league last year, like by far. They had Davis, Howard, and McGee.
Yeah.
And see, I thought the Bucks were going to make the whole time. I thought the Bucks were going to make the finals. I thought as long as the Lakers get past the Clippers, which turns out they didn't have to play, I thought they'd win the finals because the one time the Lakers lost to the Bucks in the regular season was because Giannis made like 5 or 6 threes. Right. Well, that in a 7-game series that might happen once, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they beat them. The next time the Lakers beat them somewhat handily, and the Lakers are huge. So I'm like, well, Giannis is going to get his points. He's Giannis. But if he can't just dominate a game in the paint all game, which he's not going to be able to do against Howard, McGee, and Davis, not to mention LeBron, I don't see them beating the Lakers in a 7-game series. And even though the Lakers aren't as big this year, or like the Clippers aren't the greatest, the biggest team, if you can stop Giannis from just dominating you in the paint, I don't think that team's going to beat you in a 7-game series. Not one of the really good teams. Until he gets that shot, which will he? Who knows?
So I have the Lakers and Clippers going up against each other in the Western Conference Finals. I do have the Lakers winning this. I think I'm not worried about Kawhi Leonard. I think if the Clippers are to win, it will be because Paul George can play well in the playoffs. And by well, I mean superstar Paul George that we have seen.
If Paul George plays like he did 2 years ago, which shocks me,
Yes.
where he literally had, there was argument for him being MVP. You know, I think he was third in MVP that year. If he plays like that, the Clippers could possibly be the best team in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't think he will. I think he'll be better than what he was last year, especially better than what he was in the playoffs.
Right.
But yeah, I kind of agree. You know, I think Leonard's, and I think you would agree, Leonard's the best player on the team, but Paul George is the X factor.
Yeah.
You know, how many games do you think that series will go?
I mean, if Paul George plays at his max potential, I could see it going 7. But I don't think he will. So I'm going to say 6. I'm tempted to say 5, but I'm gonna say I will say 6.
Is it more about the Lakers or more about the Clippers?
It's more of the Clippers. I think I don't think it's going to be because the Lakers, LeBron just sucks one game. I think it'll come down to, will Paul George be Paul George? And if he is Paul George, it could go 7 with the potential of the Clippers winning. I don't think it's going to go Paul George. Pretty much how he was dang near silent in the Denver Nuggets series. That was a huge reason why they lost, amongst other things too. But a big one was Paul George was not Paul George.
Kawhi was terrible in the fourth quarter as well.
And Kawhi was terrible in the fourth quarter. So I'm going to say Lakers in 6. I'm tempted to say Lakers in 5. But I do think the Clippers team is too good to not have it go at least 6.
So that brings us to the finals, which I believe are the same matchup, correct?
Lakers Bucks, yeah.
Yes. And we both have them as the 1 seeds, correct?
Yep.
I mean, it is pretty typical in basketball that's 1 versus 1. Last year the Heat were like 5 last year, I think. That's pretty rare. I think it was like the 3rd worst seed ever. Yeah. So yeah, we have Bucks and Lakers. I had, like I said, I was thinking 82 games. I had the Lakers winning 62 and the Bucks winning 59. So yeah, we have that. I have Lakers in 6. So I have the Lakers winning in 5 and 5 and 6 and in 6. I'm very, very, very high on the Lakers. I think they were the best team last year by a lot. Personally, I truly think that. They lost Howard and McGee and Green, but they added Harrell, Schroeder, Gasol. They might add the other Gasol. So they're still going to be very big. You know, Anthony Davis, that's power forward with Gasol starting is what I would assume. KCP, I once thought was terrible. He's now a very quality. He played really well in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They did lose Rondo. That's a big loss. But you got Caruso's a very good guy to have off the bench. LeBron, honestly, is probably still the best player in the league. Davis is potentially the best big man. You're the 2nd and 3rd in 6th man of the year. I don't see this team losing. I don't. At one point I didn't think LeBron would even win a 4th ring. And honestly, I don't see anybody beating him to stop him from getting his 5th this year. I have Lakers in 6 with LeBron Finals MVP.
I'm going to have Lakers in 5. The reason I say that is because I do feel that as solid as a defensive team that the Lakers can be, I think that's pretty much going to, unless this, Giannis is able to develop a shot this season where he can consistently rely on that if he has to, which I don't see happening, I think that it's going to be tough for Milwaukee to score. And I really do think the Lakers have this pretty handily in this series.
And, I never really thought of it until now. And, I watched the Lakers Clippers last year, and I couldn't really tell you who guarded Giannis or what. I didn't pay that close attention. But just coming to think of it, I do think Giannis is better than Anthony Davis. by a little bit. But just like, think of it this way. I mean, you put Davis on Giannis. They're essentially going to darn near even themselves out, even if Giannis slightly overplays him. I mean, Davis should be able to guard him fairly well. That leaves you LeBron and the rest of the Lakers versus the rest of the Bucks. I mean, you're going to take the team with LeBron, right? I mean, essentially Davis and Giannis are going to darn near even themselves out. So it's not like the Bucks have another guy to match up with LeBron, right? So I mean, I can't see this team losing. I really can't, barring an injury.
Right. I agree. Oh, yeah,
Which
that's
makes
a
me
good.
very happy to say.
Obviously, I don't know how many of you people know. Obviously, I'm a Nuggets fan. I want the Nuggets to win. But as Nick knows as well, I'm also a huge LeBron fan, so I would not be upset with him winning his.
And like I said, I might be disrespecting Nuggets. I got him at 5, and I got him losing to the Mavs. It's more so that I had him against the Mavs, and I really like Doncic. But if Murray plays like he did in the playoffs, like for most of the regular season, and again in the playoffs, they could potentially make the conference finals again. I could see them beating everybody besides maybe the Lakers. Because Murray in the playoffs is playing like a top 15 player at least. You know. And you got Jokic who's solid. I think the Nuggets could definitely use one more real quality scorer. If Michael Porter Jr. can become what I think he has the potential to, and Murray plays like it in the playoffs, they could definitely be a 2 or a 3. But I think both those things have to happen.
Folks, this season, I don't know how much Nuggets basketball you're going to be watching, but watch Facundo Campazzo. We signed him to a 2-way contract.
That is.
29 years old. He's a 29-year-old rookie. But when I tell you this man is going to have highlight reel passes, I'm serious when I say that.
One of those guys. I love watching those guys.
And watching the few preseason games that he has played in so far, one of the best passes that he had, he stole a ball on the other side of the court at mid-court, threw it, underhand, gave it perfect amount of backspin to when it bounced back to Vlatko Cancer, he dunked it. I mean, it was a perfect pass, underhand backs. I mean, it was sexy. I'll have to show it to you later.
I'm gonna have to see
that.
Yeah.
Folks, watch him. It'll be an Bol too.
Bol going to be playing much this year? Hopefully
he should. I think he'll have a lot of minutes this year.
No, do you think they'll ever play him with Jokic and put Jokic at the power forward?
I think it's very likely. Bol is an incredible shooter as well too, and I saw in a lot of games last season in the bubble that they did have Bol standing out behind the 3-point line, and Jokic was able to find him, and he was knocking down.
He's not good at 3-point shooter, huh?
Yeah.
Because I, more so than darn near anybody, have said consistently nowadays in the NBA, the big men don't win you games. If you look at the last how many Finals MVPs, they're mainly small forwards or guards.
Right.
With that being said, and I still hold true to that. With that being said, if you have good guards and good small forwards, or like one of the best, small forwards in the game, the big men are important. And I'm only saying that because last year the Lakers convinced me of it. It's a small guy in a 3-point shooting era. Well, the Lakers barely even made any threes last year, but they had a small forward who's maybe the best player in the league, and they had just giants: Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, and even Morris was big, LeBron, even the guards and the small forwards that play are big. If you can clog up the lane and stop everything from there, teams have to shoot on you to win. Mm-hmm. And it's easier. Even the best shooting teams in the league are going to have bad shooting games. It's hard to win series when you have to shoot lights out all the time. And that's why I'm just saying, Jokic is an amazing center, and he is a center. Like I'm saying, Towns needs to be a power forward for the Timberwolves. But if Bol can play center defensively and put Jokic on a power forward, I honestly think the Nuggets should look into that.
It'll be interesting. I agree with you.
Jokic isn't necessarily like the guy who's just going to stand in there and get 2 blocks a game defensively as a center. He's not it's not like he's a terrible defender, but he's not like he's not Anthony Davis out there defensively.
Not a Rudy Gobert. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I agree with you as far as centers not winning games. I think the only exception to that would be the Nuggets and Jokic. I don't think if Jokic is not on the Nuggets, I don't think they're nearly as good of a team.
Jokic is.
I think he's the only exception for me.
He gives you more wins than any other center in the league, darn near. Because even Davis, as good as he is, before he had LeBron, he could barely make the playoffs. He made it maybe once. Right. I just don't think the Nuggets can make the finals unless they have a guard or small forward that really balls out. Maybe Murray can get there, maybe.
I think he can.
As good as Jokic is, I don't think a center being your best player can get you to the finals.
It'll be, I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see.
I think the 76ers struggles in the playoffs kind of show that.
Well, when Joel Embiid can do the things that Nikola Jokic can.
I'm just saying he's the center and he's the best player. He's a better shooter than Jokic by a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it's not glaring.
Jokic he does have a nice looking three ball.
But now I guess we can get to some award predictions here. Start off with most valuable player. I have Luka Doncic.
I do as well. I don't like being the guy who picks the favorites. I picked the favorite in the West, the favorite in the East, and the favorite for MVP. But, Giannis, even if he puts up numbers, it's hard to win 3 straight MVPs. LeBron should probably have 8, but after a while his stats don't even look good because it's just ordinary for him. Well, Giannis is there too. Giannis could probably average like 30 and 12 this year, and you just expect it, And I think LeBron is going to be up there for MVP too. But LeBron's got Davis and a really good team. Giannis has a really good team, and he's won 2 in a row. Luka is one of the best players in basketball, and he's all that team has. They have Porzingis, but I mean, as far as who Luka has with him as supporting cast, it's nowhere near what Giannis and LeBron have. So I think it's just going to make him look that much better, and he's that much more important. It's just going to help feed his MVP case. And yeah, I have Luka as well for that reason and many others.
Yeah, I mean, I do think he's going to take a huge step this season and be a great player for the league, which is why I have him winning the MVP. A lot of the stuff that you said as well too. I don't need to repeat that twice.
And I'm really hoping he stays healthy. A lot of times, like I said, injuries are just kind of random, but I'm not super worried about it. But every time I watch Luka play, that dude is on the floor and gets hurt in some sort of fashion every single game. I just hope he doesn't have a bad injury because that would be the goner for Mavericks. But I love me some Luka Doncic. I'm telling you, this guy is going to be the best player in the NBA at some point in his career. He's probably my most favorite player to ever watch besides LeBron James. He is unbelievable.
Who do you have for Rookie of the Year?
So the Knicks, I have you as the worst team in basketball, but don't worry, I have Obi Toppin getting Rookie of the Year. I love this guy at Dayton. I was going to pick Dayton to win the NCAA tournament, mainly because of Obi Toppin. Yep. I think he could definitely improve as a shooter, but I really high on him. He's older than he's not your one and done college player, so he's got a year or two on a lot of these other guys, which should be an advantage. I'm really high on LaMelo Ball too, but he might not even be starting in New York. I think in Charlotte, there's a good chance Obi Toppin's starting, which should feed his case. I think Wiseman has a decent chance. But I'm really high on Toppin, and I think he's going to have the best chance, like the best opportunity to get Rookie of the Year. So I'm going to give it to him. And I really hope he does. I love me some Obi Toppin.
I do like the Obi Toppin pick a lot. I think in an awful Knicks team, I think he could be the one bright spot for them this season. However, I am going to go with Wiseman. I do think he has a lot of potential to do good things
with
the Warriors.
Really well, I think.
Yeah. Now, obviously, Curry is not a center, but you have a guy like Steph Curry on your team to maybe kind of guide you the way. I think that's going to be huge for him. I do have Wiseman winning Rookie of the Year. Who do you have for Defensive Player of the Year?
I have Anthony Davis. I'm not super confident about it, but Giannis just won it. Gobert's won 2 or 3. It's like, is he really gonna get another one? I want to say Whiteside. I really like Hassan Whiteside, but
me too.
Honestly, it shouldn't be that way. But the Trailblazers don't get that much attention. who knows if Whiteside how many minutes he even plays. I think they still have Nurkic and whatnot. Davis got second last year, and a lot of people thought he was going to win it, and he seemed to make it his life's mission to get DPOY last year. So I'm going to give it to him this year.
I'm also going to go with Anthony Davis. I think
really?
essentially that the big three is him, Giannis, and Rudy Gobert. And, personally, I think I think Rudy Gobert, and a lot of these guys too. I do think Rudy Gobert benefits a lot from his height. I don't know if he would be nearly as good of a defender if he wasn't as tall as he is. I think Anthony Davis could be, because I think he can defend not only on the perimeter but inside of the paint too. I think Rudy Gobert mainly is inside of the paint kind of defender. I think Davis is able to do more. So I'm going to give.
I could see like a Bam Adebayo maybe being a dark horse.
Yeah.
Also,
I like that.
Or like otherwise, I'd say those three you mentioned with maybe Adebayo as a real dark horse. Otherwise, I really don't see it being any of those other three.
And who do you have for Coach of the Year?
I said Monty Williams, and then I changed it. He's the Suns coach, but I went with Lloyd Pierce, the Hawks coach. It's his first year. I mean, I have him getting the 7th seed after being second to last in the East, and I believe it's his first year coaching. I think that would be enough to give it to him.
Well, you changed Monty Williams. I had Monty Williams as mine, so
well, good. Great minds think alike, but we think alike a little too much.
Yeah.
So there we have a difference in that one.
So I do have Monty Williams there. I think they were very close to making the playoffs last year. And with the addition of Chris Paul, and I think DeAndre Ayton, who's going to make a huge step this season, I think at least, with Devin Booker obviously being there, I do think this is a team that makes the playoffs. So I'm interested to see how that goes. And Monty Williams, Coach of the Year. But yeah, so that's the end of the episode of our NBA predictions. So Nick, you have anything you want to bring up?
Yeah, by the way, I have Harold getting 6th man. So I have Lakers getting the championship, the DPOI, and the 6th man.
Well, there you go.
I think the Lakers are going on the show this year. I really do. And that's not just the LeBron fan in me talking.
Oh, I would agree.
I do think the NBA is much more balanced than it once was, though. It used to be LeBron's team in the East versus the Warriors, and I'm glad it's not that anymore.
No, it is more balanced. Obviously, I think the Lakers definitely are the favorite, but I think there are teams that have a chance to give them more of a run than in years past, for sure. But it'll be interesting to see what happens this season. But for the people...
Nuggets play Christmas?
Yes. We play Dallas, I want to say. I can't remember.
No, Lakers play Dallas.
Or not Dallas. I don't remember who we play.
I'm really excited for Christmas because I got Vikings Saints at 3, and then the Lakers play the Mavs at 7. Now, unfortunately, Porzingis is going to be out, so it's probably going to diminish that game a little bit. But I'm really looking forward to Christmas Day games.
No.
Nuggets finally got the respect they deserve and give them Christmas.
We had Christmas Day last year. We believe we played the Pelicans.
Oh yeah, it took so long for the Raptors to finally get on there when they deserved it so much, and the Trailblazers, who granted they didn't do very good last year, but the Nuggets finally get on there 2 years in a row.
But anyways, folks, you'll have to let us know how we did with our predictions, what you thought. Give us your predictions too, your opinions on who you think should be in all those positions this upcoming season. We're looking forward to it again, to watch some more NBA basketball. It's always going to be a great time to see what happens this season. And I'm looking forward to it. A lot of question marks, a lot of things we're not sure, but that's what makes things more interesting at times, for sure. But if you would like to follow us on social media, certainly subscribe to us on YouTube. But follow us on Twitter, myself, at Lucas_Dorton, capital L, capital D, if you want to follow Nick on Twitter, at Doetkott, lowercase d for that. And then if you would like to follow our Twitter page for the podcast, it is at DND_podcast, capital D's, capital P for that. So certainly follow us on that. If you would like to be on an episode in the future, let us know. We would like to have you on. It's always nice having new faces on here and new opinions and new voices. So certainly come on and do that. But as for myself and Nick Duckett, this has been episode 40. And until next time, we are out.